but it's also probably written by a different author and definitely has a different point of view from the standpoint of um, what, again, maybe what the whole purpose of this book is, which is to give people an idea of what the future holds. What's interesting again is that this section actually helps us date when this book came out. And not just a little bit, but date it within 3 years. And so this is based on the idea that while Daniel might contain some prophecy, it also contains some reporting of current events, meaning that the people who wrote it kind of know what happens in some cases. Some of what they're telling us has happened. And because of that little window of how these things happened, we can date this within 3 years. And specifically, these 3 years are the years when the Maccabees took control of Jerusalem and were able to rededicate the temple. And so we'll see that coming up in these chapters. Um, and I'll point out when we get to it how people literally said, "Oh, this is talking about the Maccabees and their rededication, or not so much the rededication part of what we call Hanukkah, but the actual political events that unfolded between the Northern Greek dynasty, the Seleucid dynasty, and the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt. And the events, what? Okay, there we go. Okay, thanks, Mike. Mike fixed it. Mike fixed the mic. Thank you. Oh, much better. I can't stand that having that. I was trying to text Mike Carlin. Having that feedback is just that overlap. So you can hear us okay there now, right? Yes, out in Facebook land. And we're on Facebook too, I hope, right?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I think we've rectified the problem. Apologies again, everybody, and thank you for your patience as we did this. All right, so we're good. Um, so when we talk about Daniel, and as I've said every time, and we're going to look at it today, you do not get Christianity without the book of Daniel. It just doesn't happen. There is no the connection between the two is very dramatic, and I will show you the fact that that is not a hype is not a hyperbolic statement for me to say that this book is really the missing link between, or not the missing link. It's never been missing, but it's the link. It's the link that people always had in front of them. The never missing link uh, between the to some extent the Christian Bible and our Hebrew Bible. So that's one of the reasons why it's a book that is so important. Even though again it's not very well studied by Jews, and it's not incorporated really into our prayers. It's not incorporated into Haftarot that we read, and while we definitely, Daniel has always been a hero in Judaism, and there are a lot of Daniels, still are a lot of Daniels. The name is still a popular name, and it's because of this guy. Um, he's not a guy that we are able to. We're not. He's not a guy that we're able to kind of access in a lot of discussions, especially like kind of Jewish historic discussions, because again, it's just not. It's not a part of the daily liturgy, and it again, it wasn't studied as much by and I would even say that even though it's a very mystical book, the book of Ezekiel is studied a lot more for Jewish mysticism, things like Kabbalah. And as I mentioned before, our Wednesday night classes are about to move into what we call the Jewish journey, and we'll have a chance to look at Kabbalah a little bit more in depth. It definitely relies more on Ezekiel than it does on than it does on Daniel. So again, I would say even though Daniel is a very mystical book and has a lot of speculation, it's not the book that was used as a basis for Jewish for Jewish mysticism, if you will. All right, so let's take a look, and Judith is here now. So maybe Judith, in honor of your father Daniel, you can start us in chapter 7, and again, some of chapter 7 goes back to chapter 2, which also has similar vision. So the question of like why is the two sections, even though they seem to be written with a completely different emphasis, and there are overlaps between them, and some people say that the structure is actually an intentional structure, chiastic structure between chapters 2 and 7, etc. But I will tell you that most importantly, we're about to switch into Hebrew. Chapter 7 is still Aramaic, but the rest of the book of Daniel is actually going to switch back for the prophecies back to Hebrew, which is an interesting thing. People have speculated. We can only speculate why, but again, maybe it's because it's supposed to be like the language of like how God would speak and not the language of narration. I mean, yeah, the interesting thing is you'd expect it to have been written earlier because it's written in Hebrew, but it's probably written later. But more from the standpoint of like if God is saying it, if angels are talking, they're speaking in Hebrew. And by the way, that is something you should know. The language of the angels is Hebrew. It's not Aramaic. The angels don't speak Aramaic. The angels speak Hebrew, and the angels do make an appearance in these chapters we're about to read, and significantly by name. And let me just say, by name is very important. This is the first, well, this is the only book of the Hebrew Bible where the angels are mentioned by name. And it's the first kind of time, if you will, in Jewish history that we actually have some angelic vocabulary, if you will. So it's very important. So, Judith, would you like to start chapter 7 with Daniel's visions?
Wait, I'm reading?
Yeah, I've deputized you.
Did you tell me this?
Yeah, speak up a little bit, though.
Yeah. Okay. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and a vision of his mind in bed. Afterward, he wrote down the dream, beginning the account.
And this tells us right away it's a dream. It's a vision. It's not a vivid dream even necessarily. He sees it in bed, right? And it's a bedtime dream. It's a dream like that. Sometimes God speaks to us like when we're walking down the street and we have a vision. It's a little different. It's a lucid dream. This says right away that this is a dream that he had at night, kind of a sleep dream, and he wrote it down after he had it. And here's what it says. This is what the vision was.
Daniel related the following. In my vision at night, I saw the four winds of heaven stirring up the great sea. Four mighty beasts, different from each other, emerged from the sea. The first was like a lion, but had eagle's wings. As I looked on, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted off the ground and set on its feet like a human and given a human mind. Then I saw a second, different beast, which was like a bear, but raised on one side and with three fangs in its mouth among its teeth. It was told, arise, eat much meat. After that, as I looked on, there was another one, like a leopard, and it had on its back four wings, like those of a bird. The beast had four heads, and dominion was given to it. After that, as I looked on in the night vision, there was a fourth beast, fearsome, dreadful, and very powerful, with great iron teeth that devoured and crushed and stamped the remains with its feet. It was different from all the other beasts that had gone before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was gazing upon these horns, a new little horn sprouted up among them. 3 of the older horns were uprooted to make room for it. There were eyes in this horn like those of a human, and a mouth that spoke arrogantly.
All right. So I'm just going to break up a little bit right here because this is kind of like the setup. It's a good time to break, explain what we just saw. This is a very strange dream in the sense, or like the visions, the symbolism is strange, except for the fact that it's actually fairly easy for us to know what they're talking about. First of all, it says right off the bat that these beasts, right? These beasts remind us of the vision that we had in chapter 2, where these beasts are nations, and he's going to explain it. So but I want to break right here to make clear the four nations that we have. The first one is the Babylonians. That's the lion that has a human mind, set on its feet like a human, given a human mind. Some people say that's why we had the story of Nebuchadnezzar being turned into an animal, because he literally was like a lion. But we know it's the Babylonians because they're the ones who destroyed the temple and kind of put this whole thing in motion. They're the first nation that conquers Jerusalem, and then like what happens after that is now what happens, that gets us to the point that we are, which by the way is covering a period of about 400 years. The next kingdom is the bear, right? This is the Medians. These are the Persian Median kingdom that is the first people that take over from the Babylonians, the people that we're told are going to take over in Daniel's vision. They're Persian, but they're a different dynasty than the Achaemenid dynasty that was the Cyrus dynasty. We call them the Medes. The next dynasty, the next beast is the leopard. This is the Persians. How do we know they're the Persians? Well, the four heads are the four Persian monarchs that come after, that are the ones who ruled during that period. The next one is the Greeks. It's different than the other beasts that had gone before it, and it had 10 horns. This is a reference to Alexander the Great's kingdom, which is split up into many kingdoms because Alexander the Great doesn't leave an heir, and so his generals are all given different parts. And then when it talks about four horns, or these last horns, these are the dynasty in particular of the Seleucid dynasty, the northern, the Greek dynasty in Syria that was based in Antioch and in modern day Syria, which are the dynasty that we're most concerned about because they fought with the Ptolemies over Israel. And that area for about 200, 300 years was contested land between the Greek Syrians and the Greek Egyptians. Ptolemaic dynasty comes to an end with Cleopatra. Okay. She's the most famous, but there are several kings during that time that are Ptolemies, several queens during that time that are Cleopatras. They are Greek. They take on a very Egyptian style and they marry into Egyptian homegrown dynasty, homegrown Egyptians. So they were a mix. But they were in their origin, they were Greek. They again started worshiping Greek, Egyptian gods and goddesses in addition to their own Greek gods, and they kind of blended them together into interesting kind of hybrid Greek Egyptian dynasties. But in the northern Greeks, the Seleucid dynasty also took on some of the Middle Eastern styles of Syria and Aram and the Babylonians and the Canaanites that were in their dynasty. The bottom line is Israel was ground zero for their fights because they fought constantly of who could control Israel. It was the land bridge between Asia and Africa, and so they were constantly fighting. The fourth horn is very obviously Antiochus IV, Antiochus IV, the Seleucid king who is the one responsible for the Maccabee revolt. He is such a horrible king to the Jews that they revolt against him and they attempt to take control of Jerusalem, which they are successful in. They do not destroy the Seleucid dynasty. They just make them leave. They get to the point where the Seleucid folks kind of say, we're done here. It's not like they went away. We might have lost the Vietnam War from the standpoint that the Americans no longer propped up the South Vietnamese government, but Vietnam did not defeat the United States. Judah and his brothers were in no way going to defeat the Seleucid army, but they made it costly enough for them, and the Seleucid dynasty said, "Hey, we're done," and that's Hanukkah. Hanukkah is the victory, not the defeat of the entire. It's not like Judah and his brothers got full autonomy, but they got enough autonomy that they could control Jerusalem, rededicate the temple, get all the Greek statues out of it. And this is what this book is written during that period, literally from 167 to 164 BCE. And that's how we know, because these lines tell us exactly who these prophecies are about. What wasn't known yet was how this was going to come to an end, whether Antiochus was going to die in battle, how's he gone? And by the way, one of the things Antiochus did that was not only horrible, that he stopped Jews from being able to circumcise their kids and study Torah and all the other things that the books of the Maccabees and Josephus tells us he does, he plays the Jews against each other, right? So he basically says, okay, who wants to be high priest? Going to the highest bidder. He makes one guy the priest, and then he doesn't like that guy anymore, or he gets a higher bidder. So he makes this one guy named Jason. You can already tell the guy's name is Jason, pretty Greek. He makes him the high priest. And then he says, no, Jason, you're not paying me enough. And he makes this next guy, Menelaus, the priest, other very Greek name. These are priests, and they have very Greek names and very Greek ways. And again, it seems as though these priests that were Jewish priests were letting Greek gods come into the temple, and that's what the Maccabees really found abhorrent. Again, we don't know how bad it was, but it was bad enough that the Maccabees didn't even want to talk about it by name. They just called it this statue was this statue of desolation, it was a horrible idol. And whatever it was, it made the Maccabees freak out, and they won. And that's what we celebrate every year at Hanukkah. So this is how late this book is. So that even though, again, it doesn't talk about it from the standpoint of the Maccabees, like the kings themselves or the generals. And remember, the brothers of the Maccabees, there's 5 brothers, all of them die in battle, including Judah, with the exception of Simon. All the other brothers, John, Jonathan, Eleazar, Judah, they're all killed in battle. It's not an easy battle. It's not like, like you learn it as a kid that they won this battle and then they rededicated the temple and it was all great. One brother survived. That's it. So that's what this is talking about. And again, what do we know about Antiochus? He has a mouth that speaks arrogantly. That's what we left off in. So here is that's where we've been taken to. So we know kind of where we're taken to, in the sense that the prophecy, it's a prophecy because Daniel lives 300 years before. So Daniel is saying this, the words of Daniel are saying, and they're coming true now. But really what we're talking about is now here is really the prophecy, because everything we've had up until now is not really a prophecy. If it's written in 164, they all knew that this had happened. Now but now what happens? This is the prophecy, if you will.
As I looked on, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took a seat, wearing a garment like white snow, and with hair like lamb's wool. This throne was tongues of flame, and its wheels were blazing fire. A river of fire streamed forth from it. Thousands upon thousands rendered service. Myriads upon myriads stood in attendance. The court sat, and the books were opened. I looked on. Then, because of the arrogant words that the horn spoke, the beast was killed as I looked on. Its body was destroyed, and it was consigned to the flames. The dominion of the other beasts was taken away, but an extension of life was given to them for a time and season. As I looked on in the night vision, one like a human being, came with the clouds of heaven. He reached the Ancient of Days and was given an audience. Dominion, glory, and kingship were given to him. All peoples and nations of every language must serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship one that shall not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was disturbed within me, and the vision of my mind alarmed me. I approached one of the attendants and asked him the true meaning of all this. He gave me this interpretation of the matter.
Yeah, so we'll explain it when we get to the end of the chapter, but that's why I didn't stop to explain yet. Here you go.
These great beasts, 4 in number, mean 4 kingdoms, will arise out of the earth. Then holy ones of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess the kingdom forever, forever and ever. Then I wanted to ascertain the true meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from them all, very fearsome, with teeth of iron, claws of bronze that devoured and crushed and stamped the remains. And of the 10 horns on its head, and of the new one that sprouted, to make room for which 3 fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke arrogantly, and which was more conspicuous than its fellows. I looked on as that horn made war with the holy ones and overcame them, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was rendered in favor of the holy ones of the Most High. For the time had come, and the holy ones took possession of the kingdom. This is what he said. The 4th beast means there will be a 4th kingdom upon the earth that will be different from all the kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, tread it down, and crush it. And the 10 horns mean from that kingdom, 10 kings will arise, and after them another will arise. He will be different from the former ones, and will bring low 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High, and will harass the holy ones of the Most High. He will think of changing times and laws, and they will be delivered into his power. Into his power for a time, times and half a time. Then the court will sit, and his dominion will be taken away, to be destroyed and abolished for all time. Hang on. The kingship and dominion and grandeur belonging to all the kingdoms under heaven will be given to the people of the holy ones of the Most High. Their kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. Here the account ends. I, Daniel, was very alarmed by my thoughts, and my face darkened, and I could not put the matter out of my mind.
Right. So it's kind of explained, and it actually tells us it's written during this 3-year period or so, this time and a half, that times and a half time, which some people understand to be 3.5 years, of 167 to 164, when Antiochus was able to, again, through Jews, by the way, if you want to read an interesting version of this as it's put into effect, read The Source by James Michener. He talks about how the Jews during the Hellenistic period, went through this, and he based it on the books of the Maccabees, what it was like for Jews to be under the Hellenistic influence. It was such a powerful cultural force. And, as a kid, I remember reading that book, and I'm like, it's a great book, obviously. Long book, but it's a great book. But I remember reading it as a kid, and I remember, I don't know, like, the thing that stuck out in my mind during that period, or during that part of the book, was that, and again, it was all based on things that were written about. I mean, it's not like he invented it. He based it on Michener, based it on stuff that's in the books of the Maccabees. and things that the Jews wrote about, that there were Jews that literally reversed their circumcisions. I mean, that's what stuck out in my mind was, gosh, that's a painful process to do in order to look more Greek. And, the way Mishner describes it, and I'm like, as a kid, that's just freaking me out. Um, so they could compete and take part in Greek athletic competitions nude. And so they would show that they essentially had kind of given up the Jewish tradition. Um, Look, there's real arguments over whether these people had, how Greek they had become. They had definitely become Greek enough so that they had given up things like circumcision, but and they were not worshiping the way that their ancestors had by definitely, by putting Greek gods into the temple. But it does seem that they were still trying to retain some type of Jewish identity, which is weird because they saw themselves as Jews, mentioned that basically a Jewish Greek polis, a Jewish Greek city state in Jerusalem. Look, it's not. There were certain things they did which were clearly not compatible anymore. But this kind of, the reason why it's interesting in Mishner's book and the reason why it's relevant is because we constantly deal with these issues of assimilation today. How much of the general culture have we taken in? And it's always been an issue. Like, what's the borderline? What's going too far? And synagogues used to make this. They used to have these debates over whether we're going to have English during the service, or whether they're going to have a choir, or whether we're going to have musical instruments, and all these things that people said, oh, you can't do that in the temple, in the synagogue. This has been an ongoing issue, and for us 2,100 years ago or 2,200 years ago during the Greek period, yeah, there were definitely, you went too far. But it's an interesting question, and it hasn't. Some things have changed, but some things haven't changed. This issue of assimilation has not changed. So Daniel, at least in this period, is told that King Antiochus will come to an end. It'll be done, and it says that eventually the holy ones will overcome Antiochus's people. So even though it's a very scary, a very powerful empire, like more powerful than the previous empires in a way, it's going to come to an end. And not only that, there's going to be a new ruler in Jerusalem, essentially, who will then create an everlasting kingdom again. For the next 200 years, Jews were waiting for this period. And some people said, of course, that Jesus was this king that would create the everlasting kingdom. It's also possible that it didn't happen. It hasn't happened. The kingdom that the book is foretelling never happened. Jews were able to achieve a level of power, but never enough power to create another dynasty. And by the way, it was not because of Antiochus. The Greeks, um, the Greeks, whether they were from Syria or whether they were from Egypt, very soon became irrelevant. Because while all this was going on in the land of Israel, further to the west, the Roman Empire had become the empire. And the Romans were in the process of destroying their only rival, which were the Carthaginians, right? The people of Carthage in the Punic Wars. And those wars were happening around this time. The Romans destroyed them. And then they focused their attention back to this area, well, not back to this area, but they started getting involved. And guess what? The part of the Maccabee story that we don't talk about, that we never talk about, though it's in the book of the Maccabees, and you can see it right there, was one of the ways that Judah and his brothers got the Greek Syrians to get off their back was not just to defeat them in kind of guerrilla battles. Again, very much like Vietnam, not open confrontation. Every time the Jews took on the Greek Syrians in open battle, they got crushed, which is how Judah died and how his other brother died. Eleazar got crushed by a tank, by an elephant. That's what the Greek Syrians had, just like the Carthaginians had. I mean, they had battle elephants. Yeah, you were not going to beat these people, but they beat them enough. And then Judah and his brothers did something really, really smart. They not only, again, won several critical battles of attrition, they also wrote a letter and got a really big friend, which were the Romans. And again, we don't talk about this, though the book of Maccabees makes it very explicit. Judah and his brothers went to the Romans and said, "You're our new ally. We love you, Romans. You are our friends. And please tell Antiochus and his Seleucid dynasty that if they ever come back into Jerusalem, you're going to defend us." And that worked. Yeah. So it was a little bit more complicated than just having the really good intention of having God on your side in the battle. It also helps when you had the Romans. Now, of course, you're making a deal with the devil. But again, would it really have mattered? Could they have done anything to, could this little kingdom of Judah, or little whatever you want to say, the Maccabean kingdom and then the Herodian kingdom, could they have done anything against the Romans? No. So it's not necessarily like the Maccabees were stupid or craven for making a deal with the devil. They had no choice, but they did. Yeah. So the Romans eventually mopped up all of these dynasties. They crushed them. And they usually did it without, look, the Romans weren't stupid. They were like, if we don't have to lose soldiers, we're not going to do it, right? So they went to Egypt. And of course, we know what happened when they went to Egypt. Everybody fell in love with Cleopatra. They all fell in love with Cleopatra. Julius Caesar did, and then Mark Antony did. And then, of course, Cleopatra was so amazing, was so captivating that she got Mark Antony to fight with Augustus Caesar over Egypt. So this was how the Romans got launched into when they expanded their kingdom to the east into the areas that were controlled by these Greek dynasties. That's how they got. It's all very interesting. And by the way, it's all in the book of the Maccabees. It's in Josephus. He talks about all these kind of intricate relationships and marriages, and it's even in Daniel. You got to read between the lines, right? It's all in the prophecy, but it's all here too. And so that's the backdrop here to this. So I want you to understand that's the backdrop for what we're really reading. Again, keep in mind that some of it's prophecy and some of it is very obviously when this is written. Let's take a look at chapter 8. And now, not that it's a big deal, we're in Hebrew. So chapter 7 is prophetic, but it's in Aramaic. Chapter 8 and 9 and 10 are in Hebrew. So I just want to point that out to you. Again, it's not super, super different, but because like this chapter began in the third year, and it's, sorry, I went a little too far back. It said, Bishnat Chada, which is in Aramaic, Chad in Hebrew, Chada in Aramaic. It's almost the same, right? And then this one begins, and you can see it right away, Bishnat Shalosh, which is Hebrew, and Malchut instead of Malkat in Aramaic. So, and it's a little different, but here we go. This is the next vision of Daniel.
In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that had appeared to me earlier. I saw in the vision, at the time I saw it, I was in the fortress of Shushan, in the province of Elam. I saw in the vision that I was beside the Ulai River.
Yeah, and that's Shushan. That's the same city that, Mordecai and Esther were in, right? Now, this is not in Babylon. This is not in the head city of the Babylonian dynasty. And then the Persian dynasty took it over. But then the Persian dynasty had another city, their own city, Susa, Shushan. Yeah, the same place that we're talking about right now in Iran. That's right.
Is there an Ulai River?
Yeah.
And is it mentioned? It's not mentioned in the book of Esther, though.
Not in Esther. You're right. It's not in Esther. But a lot of times in the visions and prophecies, you'll have like people saying, I'm standing by the river, like Ezekiel standing by the Chabar River. Yeah. Yep, the rivers were pretty important in Mesopotamia, which means between the rivers. But we're not done with rivers, by the way. We're going to see some other rivers. But here we go.
I looked and saw a ram standing between me and the river. He had two horns. The horns were high, with one higher than the other, and the higher sprouting last. I saw the ram butting westward, northward, and southward. No beast could withstand him, and there was none to deliver from his power. He did as he pleased and grew great. As I looked on, a he-goat came from the west, passing over the entire earth without touching the ground. The goat had a conspicuous horn on its forehead. He came up to the two-horned ram that I had seen standing between me and the river and charged at him with furious force. I saw him reach the ram and rage at him. He struck the ram and broke its two horns, and the ram was powerless to withstand him. He threw him to the ground and trampled him, and there was none to deliver the ram from his power. Then the he-goat grew very great, but at the peak of his power, his big horn was broken. In its place, four conspicuous horns sprouted toward the four winds of heaven. From one of them emerged a small horn, which extended itself greatly toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land. It grew as high as the host of heaven, and it hurled some stars of the heavenly host to the ground and trampled them. It vaunted itself against the very chief of the host. On its account, the regular offering was suspended, and God's holy place was abandoned.
Yeah. And that seems to be talking about the desecration of the temple, that things got so bad that they couldn't offer up the sacrifices anymore. That's a pretty serious thing. That's like that's a game changer, right? Right. This is uh what do you do with a temple where it seems as though again um the it seems as though um divine the divine order has been messed around with. Yeah.
An army was arrayed iniquitously against the regular offering. It hurled truth to the ground and prospered in what it did. That's an interesting line. It hurled truth to the ground.
Yeah, and that's the word it used, emet. Vateshlech emet arza. Emet, right, is truth.
Then I heard a holy being speaking, and another holy being said to whoever it was who was speaking, "How long will what was seen in the vision last? The regular offering be forsaken because of transgression, the sanctuary be surrendered, and the heavenly host be trampled." Came the reply, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed."
Yeah, and that seems like, again, the same word of cleansing the sanctuary that we, of course, talk about at Hanukkah.
While I, Daniel, was seeing the vision and trying to understand it, there appeared before me one who looked like a man. I heard a human voice from the middle of Ulai calling out, "Gabriel, make that man understand the vision."
And there we have it right there. A first angel, Gabriel. Gabriel. Gabriel is now, yeah, Mike said Roman Gabriel. No, Gabriel here is the first angel that we get by name. And that's pretty significant. Of course, Gabriel is becomes the angel of announcing things, of visions. He's very important to explain prophecies or to give prophecies. According to, again, Christian tradition, he's the angel who announces to Mary that she's going to have a son. The Annunciation. That is something Gabriel does in the Christian Bible. Why? Because Gabriel becomes attached to speaking and telling people what's going to happen, which is why, again, Gabriel is connected with the end of days. And that's why he's blowing a trumpet in some of the prophecies also, that he is announcing the end of days. Um, he looks like a man, or at least uh, he comes in human form enough that somebody says it looked like a man. Uh, and he's not the only angel we're going to have reference, but he is the angel that seems to be, in at least again, when we first encounter him, he's the one who's telling people stuff. Yeah, Gabriel becomes, especially in angelology, he becomes the guy who kind of is God's mouthpiece, if you will. Whether he likes that role and whether he begins to kind of resent the role of being there to, well, let's put it this way, announce the end of days, is maybe in some of the latter versions of Gabriel, he tries to speed up the end of days. And so sometimes in some of the latest incarnations of the angel, Gabriel, he is not so nice in the sense that he just wants to get it over with already. And he's kind of despaired of the humans. I think that's an interesting take on it, which is basically, can angels get fed up with us? But if you want to see a version of that angel, Gabriel, who's fed up with humans, a very interesting, oftentimes, again, very uneven horror movie that came out a few years ago called Prophecy. And the Gabriel in that is Christopher Walken. And if you want to see Christopher Walken as an angel, but a very peculiar, of course, Christopher Walken-esque angel, take a look at that movie, which is, again, Gabriel is, I don't want to spoil it, but is not a good angel, is not on our side, if you will. But here, Gabriel's job is to tell Daniel what's going on, man. And again, how long this is going to last for. For Christians, this is very critical. For us, it's critical too, because if you will, this is playing out immediately or within about 2,300 days, which if you do the math is about 7 years. It's not a long time. Yeah, this is imminent. Christianity would say, well, it was only 150 years before, but this is critical. Here's what he says.
He came near to me. He came near to where I was standing, and as he came, I was terrified and fell prostrate. He said to me, "Understand, O mortal, that the vision refers to the time of the end." When he spoke with me, I was overcome by a deep sleep as I lay prostrate on the ground. Then he touched me and made me stand up and said, "I'm going to inform you of what will happen when wrath is at an end, for it refers to the time appointed for the end. The two-horned ram that you saw signifies the kings of Media and Persia. And the buck, the he-goat, the king of Greece, and the large horn on his forehead, that is the first king. One was broken and four came in its stead. That means 4 kingdoms will arise out of a nation, but without its power. When their kingdoms are at an end, when the measure of transgression has been filled, then a king will arise, impudent and versed in intrigue. He will have great strength, but not through his own strength. He will be extraordinarily destructive. He will prosper in what he does and destroy the mighty and the people of holy ones. By his cunning, he will use deceit successfully. He will make great plans, will destroy many, taking them unawares, and will rise up against the chief of chiefs, but will be broken, not by human hands. What was said in the vision about evenings and mornings is true. Now you keep the vision a secret, for it pertains to far-off days.
Now, if it happens during the time of Daniel, 500 years before, yeah, it's far-off days, 400 and some years. It's a long time away. But again, for the people who are writing this and reading this and studying it and trying to give people hope, it's happening during their time. So again, by having this happened to Daniel, it's basically saying these things have been foretold. It's all part of God's plan. And the next thing is going to be, and I'm going to explain this in a second. Well, I'm going to show it to you in a second. I'm not going to just explain it to you. I'm going to show you in a second why this is so critical for understanding Judaism and Christianity and playing out what to some extent, what we still deal with apocalyptic. I understand. But this is apocalypse, folks. When it talks about the end of days, that is the words, the apocalypse. That is what we're talking about. So it's very critical of when this is. Again, it's in the, as I said, Daniel saying this is coming way far away. It's 400 years from now. But again, for the people who are reading this, the people who wrote this, this is not far off. This is right around the corner. So let's just finish this chapter.
So I, Daniel, was stricken and languished many days. Then I arose and attended to the king's business, but I was dismayed by the vision, and no one could explain it.
Yeah. So again, very much like chapter 8 or chapter 7, chapter 8 is now kind of telling us about the lead up to where we are right now, which is the Seleucid dynasty. And again, the Greeks were not like the previous dynasties. And not only were the Greeks, a problem, this last guy is really bad. This Antiochus is really, really bad, but it's not going to be permanent. It's coming to an end. And not only is it coming to an end, when it comes to an end, it's going to be really dramatic. It's going to be really beautiful what happens, which is a new dynasty. Again, you can understand why the Maccabees were so apocalyptic and why they were so, to some extent, believed that God was on their side and why this messianism didn't stop. I'm not going to blame the book of Daniel for the next 200 years of Jewish messianism, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help. John.
The end of days. So can it be interpreted that the end of days means the end of the dynasty, not just the end of the world?
Well, yeah, it definitely can. The Jews didn't necessarily. Your question presupposes a Christian understanding of this, which is that when the end of days happens, it's like the end of the world. It's not. It's the beginning, the end of the days of the way things used to be. To some extent, it isn't the end of the world in the sense the apocalypse is not like the end of existence. It's the beginning of a new dynasty. It's the beginning of the Davidic, a new Davidic dynasty, which is going to be a new age. You're going to see. I'm going to give you the chapter. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show it to you. And to some extent, you know the answer, which is if Jesus doesn't become the king, then he becomes something different. He becomes, it has to be bigger. And like I said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you in the Christian Bible. So again, the direct line between this and most people who study the book of Revelation, they literally have the book of Revelation in one hand and the book of Daniel in the other, so they can go back and forth and show what happens there. All right. So this is chapter 9. Again, these are Daniel's visions of things that are happening to him while he's in the kingdom of the Persians. And this one actually says Darius, the son of Hashverosh, has already said it's not necessarily like that Darius. It's difficult to look at these mentions of kings in the book of Daniel and go, well, they really seem to be historically accurate to the Persian kings. But the names are like everyone knows the names, and it's not a big deal that the names don't exactly correlate because we know we're setting it up. This is it's more of you're supposed to understand the background. You're supposed to see what Daniel looks like walking around in your mind. You're supposed to imagine him in a Persian court. All right.
In the first year of Darius, son of Ahasuerus of Median descent, who was made king over the kingdom of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, consulted the books concerning the number of years that, according to the word of God that had come to Jeremiah the prophet, were to be the term of Jerusalem's desolation, 70 years.
Yeah. And so Daniel was part of the exile, but now he's like 85 and he's saying, oh, the 70 years of our exile are up. The Persians are going to let us go back now and rebuild the temple.
I turned my face to the sovereign God, devoting myself to prayer and supplication in fasting, in sackcloth and ashes. I prayed to the eternal, my God, making confession thus, O sovereign, great and awesome God, who stays faithful to the covenant with those who show love and keep the commandments. We have sinned, we have gone astray, we have acted wickedly, we've been rebellious and have deviated from your commandments and your rules.
Now that is a little familiar because exactly we use that same phrase, Chatanu va'avinu, or Harshanu, Maradnu, Sararnu. We use a version of that, right, during the Al Chet and the Ashamnu, right? We've sinned, we've gone astray, we've acted wickedly. Yeah. So yes, this contrition, this confession is not exactly in our prayers, but enough. And definitely you can hear it. Good job. All right.
And have not obeyed your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, our officers, our ancestors, and all the people of the land.
Yeah. And again, this self admission that we've screwed up has oftentimes been used by our enemies, including, again, people who came after us, as saying, look at you Jews screwed up. Daniel even said it. Daniel told you all that you didn't listen to these people. You behaved wrong, right? You didn't listen to the prophets. And again, you turned your back on the truth, which of course is why you have one basis for, what people said, why the Jews were rejected by God was because they had rejected God. So again, obviously that's not the case because we're getting this as a reminder to get back on the straight and narrow.
With you, O sovereign, is the right, and the shame is on us to this very day, on the citizenry of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, all Israel, near and far, in all the lands where you have banished them, for the trespass they committed against you. The shame, O Eternal One, is on us, on our kings, our officers, and our ancestors, because we have sinned against you. To our sovereign God belong mercy and forgiveness, for we were rebellious and did not obey the eternal our God by following the teachings that were set before us through the prophets, God's servants. All Israel has violated your teaching and gone astray, disobeying you. So the curse and the oath written in the teaching of Moses, the servant of God, have been poured down upon us, for we have sinned. You carried out the threat you made against us and against our rulers who ruled us, to bring upon us great misfortune. Under the whole heaven, there has never been done the like of what was done to Jerusalem. All that calamity, just as is written in the teaching of Moses, came upon us, yet we did not supplicate the eternal our God, did not repent of our iniquity, or become wise through your truth.
And again, when it says the teaching of Moses, they don't just mean the Torah. They could be speaking about Deuteronomy in particular, right? All the blessings and curses that are laid out. That's Moses. And Moses said it. And Moses says, look, you could say, well, we violated the teachings of Moses, but the curses that are given in Kitavo, that's exactly what's happened. And so Daniel's, this book is reminding us, oh yeah, you broke all those, you broke the tradition and God did everything that God said was going to happen. We had happened to us. It's happened. And, have we really been repentant?
Hence, God was intent upon bringing calamity upon us. For the eternal our God is in the right in all that has been done, but we have not been obedient. Now, O our sovereign God, you who brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand winning fame for yourself to this very day. We have sinned. We have acted wickedly. O my sovereign, as befits your abundant benevolence, let your wrathful fury turn back from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain. For because of our sins and the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become a mockery among all who are around us. O our God, hear now the prayer of your servant and his plea, and show your favor to your desolate sanctuary for your sake, O my sovereign. Incline your ear, O my God, and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolation and the city to which your name is attached. Not because of any merit of ours do we lay our plea before you, but because of your abundant mercies.
Yeah. And again, this isn't really so much prophecy as it is supplication, confession, atonement, right? And this is atonement, not just for the sake of like at a personal level, because again, the Bible is not overly concerned with necessarily you and I. Doesn't deal a lot with our own personal wrongs, but on a national level, asking for forgiveness, saying we screwed up as a people, which is again something we do at the high holidays, right? It's not just about our individual failings. And we remind people of that all the time when we say that the confessional prayers are all said as we's. We remember that any one of us at any given day can seek atonement. We can, every day is a chance for teshuvah, but as a community, as coming back together as a community on high holidays, we come back together and we say, how did we screw up? How did we as a community not do what we had to do together? And that's why the high holidays are important, not because, again, we need to make personal teshuvah just on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. I mean, that's ridiculous. Every day we're told that the gates of repentance are open for us, but as a community, we all come together. And hopefully, again, a lot of us come together to do it. So
Why was this section never read for the high holidays or for?
Interestingly, I will tell you, and I was going to get to it, but since you asked it now, it's a good
Sorry.
point. It's a good time to say it. One of the reasons why Daniel was, I wouldn't say swept to the side, but definitely not studied as much, was because the rabbis knew something about the book of Daniel, which now you know and you've been reminded of. This book, and I kind of let it slip already, this book is not about really, it's not about, Daniel or an individual Jew not, trying to find salvation and trying to find connection to God. This is about how do we get back our power. And the rabbis knew that encouraging people to go down that road is just going to make people nuts, and it's going to cause needless, or I would say, at least at that point, it's not going to help the situation. It's just going to incite people to rise up against the Romans. I mean, originally it was rising up against the Greeks, but once the Maccabean revolt, was over, and then the different Roman revolts during the time. And again, there wasn't one Roman revolt, as we talked about. The Bar Kokhba revolt, the last really major revolt. I mean, millions of Jews died in that. And by that period, Jews said, stop talking about this stuff. And the rabbis, like we've been looking last week on Wednesday, we looked at messianic speculation in the Talmud, and already, they're not even talking that much about Daniel because they know how dangerous it is, and they want people to be Jewish, but they don't want people to die, and they don't want people to be obsessed with national reclamation, which is what this is about. This isn't about, being more Jewish in your home. This is about getting back to Jerusalem. Let us come back, right? And so that's what the rabbis did not want to see happen. They did not want people to get agitated. And this book agitates people because it makes people say, why can't we do this now? So, yeah. No, it's national. This is a national issue, right? This is our temple is destroyed. We have to rebuild the temple. We have to get back to doing the stuff that God wants us to do in the land of Israel. In the land of Israel. I mean, Daniel's not talking about, he's not talking about himself. He's not talking about let's be really good Jews in Susa or Babylon. He's saying your city, your city. And so He's talking about getting us back home. All right, Jude.
While I was speaking, praying, and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and laying my supplication before the eternal my God in behalf of the holy mountain of my God, while I was uttering my prayer, the figure whom I had previously seen in the vision, Gabriel, was sent forth in flight and reached me about the time of the evening offering. He made me understand by saying to me and saying, Daniel, I have just come forth to give you understanding. A word went forth as you began your plea, and I have come to tell it, for you are precious. So mark the word and understand the vision.
And now this is the prophecy. So the first part, the first 23 verses or so, is Daniel's supplication, his confession, his please God, help us come back. And now here's the vision.
70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city until the measure of transgression is filled and that of sin complete, until iniquity is expiated and eternal righteousness ushered in, and prophetic vision ratified, and the Holy of Holies anointed.
And look at 70 weeks. It's 70 years. Yeah.
You must know and understand from the issuance of the word to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the time of the anointed leader is 7 weeks. And for 62 weeks, it will be rebuilt, square and moat, but in a time of distress. And after those 62 weeks, the anointed one will disappear and vanish. The army of a leader who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, but its end will come through a flood. Desolation is decreed until the end of war. During 1 week, he will make a firm covenant with many. For half a week, he will put a stop to the sacrifice and the grain offering. At the corner of the altar will be an appalling abomination until the decreed destruction will be poured down upon the appalling thing.
Yeah. Now, the prophecy that we just had nothing to do with the restoration during the time of Daniel. He's talking about the same thing, which is what happened in the second temple when the Greeks did something horrible, which is make an appalling abomination in the sanctuary, in the temple, in the Holy of Holies. There was a idol, and the Bible doesn't even tell us what it looked like. It doesn't need to tell us what it looked like. I mean, I guess we'd like to know what it looked like, but it doesn't matter. This abomination is the same thing that the Maccabees called it. This abomination that was there may have been a statue of Jupiter, of Zeus, of something, an eagle, some representation of Zeus. We don't know. People speculated, maybe there's like a clue in there. But this is not about the restoration during the time of Ezra, which we're about to read now, the return and the restoration during the Persian era. This is about his own stuff. What's interesting, of course, is that there's going to be some other problems during that period. It's not going to be easy, right? And it specifically says that there's going to be destruction during that time. It's not good. And again, this 70 weeks, even if it refers to the years of 70 years, again, is it possible that what it's talking about is also, if you will, the clue to how long the temple is going to be messed with before it's restored? Now, the last part of Daniel, which we're going to read now, this last vision, these last chapters are one vision. So what we just read were 3 different visions essentially about the same thing, which is the Maccabean cleansing of the temple, of the revolt against Antiochus, the horrible abomination that was put in, and getting rid of that. And again, maybe it's going to, I know it's not that's not it. It's maybe going to usher in a whole new era. It's going to be like a new start. But that's what it's really talking about. In each one of those chapters is talking about the last part of this, the last part, what we're going to read right now. So chapters 10, 11, and 12, these last parts, it's all one vision, in the sense that, again, you're going to see a vision of, you're going to see a vision of this battle, which, after we're done reading it, we're going to talk about what's happening in it, and the fact that there's a difference of opinion of what is going on here, in the sense that there's a Jewish understanding of, and again, it's based on what we've already read, which is this Maccabean revolt, that when we get to it, I'll show you the difference, as I promised, that there'll be the Christian version of this, reading of this, and the Jewish version of it. Yes.
How do you folks make the leap from great bland words, the anointed leader,
Yep.
to Jesus?
We're going, you'll see why. Yes, you're right. There is a problem in that there doesn't seem in the Maccabean times, and again, one can make the argument for all Jewish times, what that looks like. Well, that's not exactly true. let me say that's not exactly true, because, oh, look, there's Wordle. How did that get there? What is what we don't know is how many other Jewish messiahs there were during this time that people said the book of Daniel, or I said during the time of Jesus, how many other people there were that people said Daniel's talking about this guy. We know enough that John the Baptist was one of those people that Jews had, or there were some Jews, or there was a circle of people who said that this is the person. We know that because the Christian Bible says it. Read between the lines, and Josephus flat out says it, that people said that John the Baptist was the Messiah. But we really only have the Christian version of it. I mean, we don't have the other versions. So let me just say, that's the version that we know about. We have, but there probably were other versions of this. I mean, we know there was the John the Baptist version of it. Again, Josephus talks about John the Baptist for 10 pages. He has one line about Jesus, and we're not even sure that that line was even there. John the Baptist is very prominent. I'm not saying super prominent, but prominent enough in Josephus to say he knew John the Baptist. He knew what was going on with that messianic speculation. If you had asked Josephus in 70 of the Common Era, 80 of the Common Era, which Messiah is going to be the Messiah that people would be talking about as the Messiah, you 100% would have said John the Baptist. He would have been wrong, but he would have definitely picked John the Baptist. It's obvious from his writing. It's not a question. Not a question. The question of whether Josephus even mentioned Jesus is a question, but he definitely talks about John. And as I said, I'm going to show you the link once we finish these chapters. So this is the 10 through 12 is Daniel's final vision. It's at the end. It's also the last vision of, it's the last king that he lived during, which was King Cyrus, Koresh. As I mentioned before, David Koresh took his name from the Jewish Messiah, David, and the pagan, the Gentile Messiah, who was King Cyrus, Koresh. So he did that intentionally. That was not his original birth name, David Koresh. He took those names, blending together the Jewish and the Gentile Messiah. And again, the Branch Davidians were a break off of Seventh-day Adventists, who obviously are very into the Sabbath, but they're also very into the Advent, which is what we're talking about, the end of days. So part of the millennial religions of the 1800s that developed in America. Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Mormonism all came out of the same kind of environment of millennial speculation, and the big event of the apocalypse, the rapture, all of that was going to happen soon, and it was going to happen maybe out of America. So let's take a look at where all this stuff comes from, because it comes from these chapters. I mean, you do not get, and again, this is the part, you do not get Christianity without these 3 chapters. Here we go.
In the 3rd year of King Cyrus of Persia, an oracle was revealed to Daniel, who was called Belshazzar. That oracle was true, but it was a great task to understand the prophecy. Understanding came to him through the vision. At that time, I, Daniel, kept 3 full weeks of mourning. I ate no tasty food, nor did any meat or wine enter my mouth. I did not anoint myself until the 3 weeks were over. It was on the 24th day of the 1st month when I was on the bank of the great river, the Tigris.
Yeah, so he's back in Babylon, or near it, because he's by the river Tigris. Another river. Important for these visions, right? Ezekiel and Daniel is being by the river. Interestingly, it says he was keeping 3 weeks of like as a avel, as a mourner. We were told at the beginning that he didn't eat anything but legumes and water while he was in the court. So had he started eating other stuff and then decided, during this period of time that, well, he's going through some spiritual quest, right? He's trying to understand this vision, this last vision, which is really important, that he stopped eating meat or wine. So that implies he was eating meat and wine. So at some point, did he get kosher food delivered? I don't know. But it does seem that he was eating it at some point because he stopped. Yeah.
Back to
Here we go.
a little far.
No,
It was on the 24th day of the 1st month, when I was on the great bank of the great river, the Tigris, that I looked and saw a figure dressed in linen, his loins girt in fine gold. His body was like beryl, his face had the appearance of lightning, his eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and legs had the color of burnished bronze, and the sound of his speech was like the noise of a multitude.
Yeah, and that's very Ezekiel. It's a very Ezekiel type vision. Some angelic being that has light and different colors happening, and flames, right? Things are on fire. Things are lit up. Yeah.
I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. The others who were with me did not see the vision, yet they were seized with a great terror and fled into hiding. So I was left alone to see this great vision. I was drained of strength. My vigor was destroyed, and I could not summon up strength. In the Hebrew, oh no, it's the same word. I was going to say, is it also strength, or did they? But it's the same word.
Yeah, no, this is koach.
Koach, yeah. Okay, sorry. I heard him speaking, and when I heard him speaking, overcome by a deep sleep, I lay prostrate on the ground. Then a hand touched me and shook me onto my hands and knees. He said to me, "Oh, Daniel, precious one, mark what I say to you and stand up, for I have been sent to you." After he said this to me, I stood up, trembling. He then said to me, "Have no fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your mind to get understanding, practicing self-denial before your God, your prayer was heard, and I have come because of your prayer. However, the prince of the Persian kingdom opposed me for 21 days. Now, Michael, a prince of the first rank, has come to my aid after I was detained there with the kings of Persia."
Yeah, we need to say something about this, because this seems to imply some type of angelic stuff that's going on here, which we haven't had yet. Which again, if this is written during the Greco-Hellenistic type period where we have other books, the book of Enoch, which was written around this time, maybe even a little earlier than this, that has very developed angelic systems, names, things going on. And this seems to be similar to some of the things we read in the book of Enoch, which is that there are different angels for different kingdoms. Every kingdom has an angel. Our king, our angelic prince is Michael. Michael. Uh, and what happens is, according to this kind of system, is that the angels who fight on behalf of a certain kingdom, if they're doing well, if they're in the heavenly court doing their stuff and successful with it, their corresponding kingdom is doing well. This is a theology, if you will. This is a belief system that allows for a God that allows for angels to kind of control some of the stuff that goes on here in the world, and that the angels, we rise and fall with the angels. How do you know this? How do you see this? Well, if you're wise and you're smart and you know the systems, you can see it in the stars, because the angels are also represented by stars, constellations, by certain things going on in the heavens, which is why we have things like the star that represents Bar Kokhba, whose name literally means the son of the star. His angelic protector, or the angelic protector of all the Jewish people, if you will, Michael, is giving Bar Kokhba strength if he's doing well. So the stars and the angels are connected. The way it's playing out in the sky is again, if you can read it, is there. It's in the Christian story, which is why the star in Bethlehem is a representation of Jesus being represented by Michael and the star and ascension. Yeah. Well, yes, you would think. So it's interesting because well, the first part is that it's thrown in there, or it's introduced in such a way that there is no real explanation, right? There's no explanation for it. So if there's no explanation for it, we have to assume, first of all, we really do have to assume this. Everybody knew what he was talking about here, that it was so well known that when he throws this stuff in here, he doesn't need to explain it. He doesn't need to tell us the backstory of how Michael is our angelic representation, our angelic prince. Because here's the weird thing, John. People do it all the time. If you write something in you're writing let's say you're writing a book, and you talk about certain things and you just assume that everybody knows it. You assume, if you're writing about the United States, if you say something that's going on in the background, like you talk about the president or you talk about something else, you don't have to explain what a president is. You don't have to explain, the federal system and the checks and balances and everything else. You just start talking about it, and you don't have to give the backstory, because everybody knows what you're talking about. Everybody knows that when you see this kind of stuff happening, the problem, of course, is that we don't always understand it all. We have to speculate. So how do we speculate? We look at the book of Enoch and we say, oh yeah, we know what he's talking about. Actually, we don't even have to look at the book of Enoch, because we have it in the Talmud. We have some angelic stuff there. Not a lot, but we have enough. We have enough other sources. We have Christian sources. We have other people talking about this kind of stuff, so that we know, we can piece together the backstory. But yeah, when somebody says stuff like this and they don't they don't give us the backstory, it just tells you everybody knew it, which is frustrating, because again, we don't talk about angels anymore. We don't have a very developed angelic vocabulary, but Jews did. I mean, there were times in our history where angels, look, it's not that it was always encouraged, and it wasn't something that, again, Judaism always had this feeling like if you're going to talk about the angels, then you're making God less powerful. But this text seems to be telling us that God's letting these angels do stuff. If the prince of the Persian, the angels of the Persian, the angel of the Persian, is opposing me, is stopping me from doing stuff, that means God's created a system where this stuff can happen. I mean, look, it's here, it's right there.
Busy.
Yeah.
He's got to delegate.
Now, what's interesting,
Someplace else.
he says the prince of Persian king, and now Michael comes to my aid. Now, Michael is in addition to this other angel. Now, no, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, it's in verse 13. That's what I'm saying. It says Michael, but it doesn't tell us. What I'm saying is it doesn't really explain, oh, yeah, and Michael is our angel. Michael is our protector. Michael is the one who works on our behalf. What it does tell us is that Michael is in the first rank. Michael is a high enough, call him Mike. Mike is a high enough angel that he can really have a lot of pull. So one of the reasons why the Jews usually do a little bit better is because our angel, Michael, is in the inner circle. He's one of the head angels. And that's part of the angelic mythology, if you will, that's important for us as Jews. How do we do well is because we have an angel who's one of God's top lieutenants. But again, it's not a big part of our dialogue today. We don't talk a lot about angels today, so this is not necessarily as familiar to us. But people who understand angelic mythology, especially Michael and Gabriel, and like the four big angels are Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. Those are the four big angels that we invoke. We don't invoke them that much, but they're actually invoked traditionally in the bedtime Shema, that we actually ask for those angels to surround us when we go to sleep. But again, this is a little bit of more of the angelic mythology that's connected to international politics and war. Interestingly enough, the Persian kingdom has been a problem now, but obviously their angels are not very strong. Their angels didn't do a very good job of protecting their country from Michael and the Israeli Air Force. So there you go. Seems to be highly relevant. All right, here's what happens now in this vision.
So I've come to make me understand what is to befall your people in the days to come. For there is yet a vision for those days. While he was saying these things to me, I looked down and kept silent. Then this figure who looked human touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and spoke, saying to him who stood before me, my Lord, because of the vision, I've been seized with pangs and cannot summon strength. How can this servant of my Lord speak with my Lord, seeing that my strength has failed and no spirit is left in me? The one who looked human touched me again and strengthened me. He said, have no fear, precious one. All will be well with you. Be strong, be strong. As he spoke with me, I was strengthened and said, speak on, my Lord, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, do you know why I have come to you? Now I must go back to fight the prince of Persia. When I go off, the prince of Greece will come in. No one is helping me against them except your prince, Michael. However, I will tell you what is recorded in the book of truth.
Yeah. So the angels are fighting, of course, mean the politics as they're shaping up is complicated. And, there's a war going on up here in heaven between these different. No, not all those angels. Those angels are God's inner angels. Michael is our angel, and he also happens to be one of those inner angels. So the other angels don't necessarily have another nation. The other ones are just angels. The Greek angel and the Persian angel, they're just like regular angels. But we got Michael, And so because we have Michael, we have one of God's main angels and a good person in the, a good angel. It's a good one to have because he's part of the inner circle. He's one of those four. So as we said, Gabriel already made it, and Gabriel doesn't seem to be attached to anybody else. Look, I'll just tell you, in Jewish angelology, like all the angels really like us, but they're also disappointed in us, right? Because the angels have higher expectations for us. And so when we let the angels down, it's oftentimes Michael is like the last line of defense for us, which is that um, yeah, Michael's the one who refuses to kind of give up on us. He's the one who always, uh, he's the one who always kind of has our back, and even when we don't believe in ourselves, um, he, uh, he, yeah, he has our back. Um, and yeah, it's an interesting yeah, it's an interesting situation when we look at the way those angels the way those things play out. Again, it's part of mythology. It's part of kind of like our the mythology that we kind of had, which was angel mythology, angelology. Um, and again, if you want to see a little bit of this at play, yeah, you got to go back to the movie Prophecy, which is pretty wild. It's a pretty wild movie, but it's a lot of based on it's based on these kind of wars that go on in heaven. Um, so there you go. By the way, I'm just looking up. Virginia Madsen was in that movie. Michael Madsen's sister. Eric Stoltz was in it too. It's just a very uneven movie. I'm not going to recommend it necessarily, but it does deal with these kind of angelic wars and yeah, how it affects human destiny. That we're caught up in these, or at least there's a war playing out in heaven, and the stuff happens here on earth. So let's continue with because this didn't end, right? The this is still the prophecy.
In the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to strengthen and fortify him. And now I will tell you the truth. Persia will have 3 more kings, and the 4th will be wealthier than them all. By the power he obtains through his wealth, he will stir everyone up against the kingdom of Greece.
And this is all stuff that did happen during the Persian dynasties, the Achaemenid dynasties that led up to Alexander the Great.
Then a warrior king will appear who will have an extensive dominion and do as he pleases. But after his appearance, his kingdom will be broken up and scattered to the 4 winds of heaven, but not for any of his posterity, nor with dominion like that which he had, for his kingdom will be uprooted and belong to others besides these.
And it was not Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great.
The warrior king who will appear and have extensive dominion and do as he pleases, but his kingdom will be split up because he has no heirs. Pretty obvious. They're talking about Alexander the Great.
The king of the south will grow powerful. However, one of his officers will overpower him and rule, having an extensive dominion. After some years, an alliance will be made, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to effect the agreement, but she will not maintain her strength, nor will his strength endure. She will be surrendered together with those who escorted her and the one who begot her and helped her during those times. A shoot from her stock will appear in his place, will come against the army and enter the fortress of the king of the north. He will fight and overpower them. He will also take their gods with their molten images and their precious vessels of silver and gold back to Egypt as booty. For some years, he will leave the king of the north alone, who will later invade the realm of the king of the south, but will go back to his land.
And what he's talking about here are the wars between the Seleucid and Ptolemaic dynasties, the north and the south. The north and south of Israel. The north is the Syria, Greeks, the Seleucids, and the south are the Ptolemaic Greeks. And these wars go back and forth. And there's a bunch of them. So the question of which ones he's talking about here, difficult to know, but it happened a lot. They went back and forth, and that was going on all the way through from about 300 to about 150. That's the time of the 150 is the time of the Maccabees, 160. So again, it's about 150 years. This is what this time was like. We don't know a lot about it. If we didn't have Josephus, we would know nothing about it. But it was just Israel being caught between the two of them. They're being somewhat, things are fairly calm other than, sometimes Jews are fighting for the north, for the Greek Syrians, and sometimes they're fighting for the Ptolemaic Greeks in the south. They're kind of caught in the middle.
His sons will wage war, collecting a multitude of great armies. He will advance and sweep through as a flood, and will again wage war as far as his stronghold. Then the king of the south in a rage will go out to do battle with him, with the king of the north. He will muster a great multitude, but the multitude will be delivered into his foe's power. But when the multitude is carried off, he will grow arrogant. He will cause myriads to perish, but will not prevail. Then the king of the north will again muster a multitude even greater than the first. After a time, a matter of years, he will advance with a great army and much baggage. In those times, many will resist the king of the south, and the lawless sons of your people will assert themselves to confirm the vision, but they will fail. The king of the north will advance and throw up siege ramps and capture a fortress city, and the forces of the south will not hold out. Even the elite of his army will be powerless to resist. His opponent will do as he pleases, for none will hold out against him. He will install himself in the beautiful land with destruction within his reach. He will set his mind upon invading the strongholds throughout his foe's kingdom, but in order to destroy it, he will effect an agreement with him and give him a daughter in marriage. He will not succeed at it, and it will not come about. He will turn to the coastlands and capture many, but a consul will put an end to his insults, nay, pay him back for his insults. He will head back to the strongholds of his own land, but will stumble and fall and vanish. His place will be taken by one who will dispatch an officer to exact tribute for royal glory, but he will be broken in a few days, not by wrath or by war. His place will be taken by a contemptible man on whom royal majesty was not conferred. He will come in unawares and seize the kingdom through trickery.
And again, we're not sure about many of the things that were happening during this period because it happened so many times back and forth. There were so many, again, for 150 years, Ptolemaic dynasty and Seleucid dynasty were constantly invading each other. They were raiding each other's coastal cities, again, along the coast of Israel, the coast of what's today Lebanon. But this guy is now the guy. It is back to Antiochus, a contemptible man on whom royal majesty was not conferred. That's now Antiochus, who they say took power without legitimacy. He's not a good guy.
The forces of the flood will be overwhelmed by him and will be broken, as so too the covenant leader. And from the time an alliance is made with him, he will practice deceit, and he will rise to power with a small band. He will invade the richest of provinces unawares, and will do what his father and forefathers never did, lavishing on his followers spoil, booty, and wealth. He will have designs upon strongholds, but only for a time. He will muster his strength and courage against the king of the south with a great army. The king of the south will wage war with a very great and powerful army, but will not stand fast, for they will devise plans against him. Those who eat of his food will ruin him. His army will be overwhelmed, and many will fall slain. The minds of both kings will be bent on evil. While sitting at the table together, they will lie to each other, but to no avail, for there is yet an appointed term. He will return to his land with great wealth, his mind set against the holy covenant. Having done his pleasure, he will return to his land. At the appointed time, he will again invade the south, but the second time will not be like the first. Ships from Kittim will come against him. He will be checked and will turn back, raging against the holy covenant. Having done his pleasure, he will then attend to those who forsake the holy covenant.
And again, this seems to be very specifically, again, a time with Antiochus that we can, Antiochus IV, which we absolutely know what happened, which is that he was raiding the Egyptian kingdoms of the Ptolemies and all their property, and he was, as this tells us, he was taking stuff. He was successful. Of course, when he wasn't successful, what does it tell us? He went to Israel and he would raid stuff there. He would take property away from us. He's a bad dude. But what's interesting is here, it says ships from Kittim will come against him. He will be checked. Well, we know for a fact what this is talking about. 100%. This one's not even, we don't even have to guess. During this time, the Ptolemaic dynasty also reached out to Rome and told the Romans, please come and stop this guy from raiding us. He's causing chaos. And again, the Romans are trying to figure out how to exert power in that area without, having to get too involved. But they send a naval attachment to the Ptolemaic dynasty to stop these guys. The ships from Kittim were Roman ships. How do we know? Because the Kittim were the Philistines. The Bible just called the Romans Philistines, which is fine. I mean, it's kind of funny in a way because they came from the West. They were Aegean peoples. They were people who were Greco-Roman peoples, totally legitimate, and we know exactly what they're talking about, which is these Roman attacks that helped the Ptolemaic dynasty. But again, this Antiochus doesn't stop because every time he gets checked out of the Egyptians, he turns his attention to us. He could, because the Egyptians have nominal control over Israel at some points, but every time he wants to exert his power, he just comes in and takes territory from Israel and takes property from us.
Forces will be levied by him. They will desecrate the temple, the fortress. They will abolish the regular offering and set up the appalling abomination.
Yeah, there it is again. The appalling abomination. That's it again. The shikuts. It's the abomination.
Shikuts.
Right? That's the Hebrew word for shagets, right? That's where the word shagets comes from. Yes. A non-Jewish man.
Shikuts.
It's an abomination. Shikuts, right here. That's the Hebrew origin of the word shagets. It's not a good word. It's an abomination. Yeah. So.
It's nasty.
Yeah. There you go.
He will flatter with smooth words those who act wickedly toward.
And by the way, that's the only time we have the word shikuts. It's not a very common Hebrew word. That's kind of why I pointed it out. But they translated it as an abomination. Anyway.
It doesn't show up anywhere else?
It does. I didn't say it. It's not very common. It's not a very common word. Yeah.
He will flatter with smooth words those who act wickedly toward the covenant, but the people devoted to their God will stand firm. The knowledgeable among the people will make the many understand, and for a while they shall fall by sword and flame, suffer captivity and spoliation. In defeat, they will receive a little help, and many will join them insincerely. Some of the knowledgeable will fall, that they may be refined and purged and whitened until the time of the end. For an interval still remains until the appointed time.
Yeah, and what they're saying is that the Jews that are fighting against Antiochus are going to die. Some of them will die, and they're good people. They'll die. But the end of days is coming, right? The appointed time is coming. So it's not going to be long, right? It's not going to be long.
The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and he will speak awful things against the God of gods. He will prosper until wrath is spent, and what has been decreed is accomplished. He will not have regard for the God of his ancestors or for the one dear to women. He will not have regard for any God, but will magnify himself above all.
Yeah, so he's not even taking, he doesn't even show proper respect to his pagan gods. When he's talking about the one who's dear to women, he's probably either talking about the god Tammuz, the god that was one of the main gods of the ancient Near East, or maybe Ishtar, or one of the gods of fertility. He's not even taking care of those gods. He's making himself God.
He will honor the God of fortresses on his stand. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly things, a God that his ancestors never knew. He will deal with fortified strongholds with the help of an alien God. He will heap honor on those who acknowledge him and will make them master over many. He will distribute land for a price. At the time of the end, the king of the south will lock horns with him, but the king of the north will attack him with chariots and riders and many ships. He will invade lands, sweeping through them like a flood. He will invade the beautiful land too, and many will fall. But these will escape his clutches: Edom, Moab, and the chief part of the Ammonites. He will lay his hands on lands, not even the land of Egypt will escape. He will gain control over treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and Cushites will follow at his heel. But reports from east and north will alarm him, and he will march forth in a great fury to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal pavilion between the sea and this beautiful holy mountain, and he will meet his doom with no one to help him.
So, according to this, he's going to die in the land of Israel. Antiochus is going to die there fighting. And he's obviously very successful up until now. But it's all going to come to an end. Yeah. Well, it's the first time that we've had some of these names, right? Lubim, which is definitely Libyans. Cushim, the Cushites. Cushites we've seen. But Lubim are other parts of Egypt, right? Of the Egyptian dynasty, right? It's Libya to the west and Cush to the south. These are all parts of the Greek Egyptian empire that he was able to overrun. So now we're going to read the last part. And this is the last part of this prophecy. This is the end of Daniel. And so you're going to see how this is all going to come to an end. Well, it says he's going to meet his doom in the land of Israel. Without ruining the story, that's not where he dies. But he does die. Antiochus does die, but not quite like this. Okay, you could say, well, the prophecy isn't 100% accurate, but he does die. He does die during this period. Here we go.
At that time, the great prince, Michael, who stands...
wait, hold on, by the way. And by the fact that he doesn't die exactly the way that this says he dies is actually the way we know that it wasn't finished, that this happened before he died, and he dies in 164. So we know that this is written between 167 and 164 because all of this stuff is happening, but he hadn't died yet. And once he dies, and he does, look, I mean, it's pretty accurate because it's written during the time that all this stuff is happening, but it's not quite 100% accurate. And the way to explain that is that the author of this doesn't know how he died, but he did in fact die. And that's probably, again, one of the reasons why the book of Daniel was so important, because it prophesizes the end of Antiochus and the fact that, again, good times are at hand. And that's what we're going to finish with.
I have a barking dog.
He knows good times are at hand. It's the last verses. Yeah, here we
Last
go.
verses. He knows. She knows. Come here. Okay. At that time, the great prince Michael, who stands beside the sons of your people, will appear. It will be a time of trouble, the like of which has never been since the nation came into being. At that time, your people will be rescued. All who are found inscribed in the book. Really? It's not even Chabad next. Many of those that sleep. Stop. Many of those that sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to eternal life, others to reproaches, to everlasting abhorrence. And the knowledgeable will be radiant like the bright expanse of sky, and those who lead the many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and ever.
And that's the vision of people being resurrected. That there literally will be people who will sleep with the dust, who will come back, and then others who are going to everlasting abhorrence. This is really the only time in the Bible that we see this kind of reference to this. And it's not heaven, so to speak, as it is this resurrection at the end of days. Yeah. Well, it's not the end of it's the end of days in our understanding, not again the Christian understanding, right? This is the Jewish understanding. It is. We're going to see why. I promised you. Here we go.
And the knowledgeable will be radiant, like the bright expanse of the sky. And those who lead the many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, keep the word secret and seal the book until the time of the end. Many will range far and wide, and knowledge will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked and saw two others standing, one on one bank of the river and the other on the other bank of the river. One said to that figure clothed in linen who was above the water of the river, "How long until the end of these awful things?" Then I heard the figure clothed in linen who was above the water of the river swear by the ever-living one as he lifted his right hand and his left hand to heaven. For a time, times, and half a time, and when the breaking of the power of the holy people comes to an end, then shall all these things be fulfilled. I heard and did not understand, so I said, "My Lord, what will be the outcome of these things?" He said, "Go, Daniel, for these words are secret and sealed to the time of the end. Many will be purified and purged and refined. The wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the knowledgeable will understand. From the time the regular offering is abolished and an appalling abomination is set up, it will be 1,290 days. Happy the one who waits and reaches 1,335 days. But you, go on to the end. You shall rest and arise to your destiny at the end of the days."
So, what we're talking about here is the end of this period of destruction, of really bad times. And the people who lived during these times thought that they could never get worse. They were wrong because the Maccabean revolt and the way it ended was a good time. The Romans were not, that was not a good time. Now, the problem, of course, and what we're going to show you right now, is that Christians did not believe that this was being, they didn't believe that this had necessarily happened during the time of the Maccabees. Now, if you're going to say, well, how did the Christians get away saying that? Remember, the rabbis had no problem interpreting other things for later times as well. So they were just doing midrash. They were just explaining it in their own time in a very Jewish way. Now, let's take a look. Oh yeah, it's definitely the end of a war. Yep, and it's chaos, and there's a lot of unknowing. And look, if the book of Daniel is written in the early part of the war, then look, it's amazing that the guy was right and he was hopeful. So if he wrote it in 167, then it's pretty amazing. If he wrote it in 164 towards the end of the war, well, it's still amazing because, you know, he didn't know for sure we were going to win, but he definitely believes we're going to win. He also, though, believes that Antiochus is going to die there, which he doesn't. But he did die. This is not the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible. This is the book of Matthew. This is the gospel, the one that's the most closely aligned with Jewish theology. Matthew is the most Jewish of the four gospels. And this is what, according to Matthew, according to what this gospel, this version of Jesus's sayings what he said, not the book of Revelation, which is as I said, and we'll look just for a second at the book of Revelation. What Jesus says is, it says Jesus left the temple and was walking away, and this is again towards the end of his time. He's in the temple, right? So he's in Jerusalem in the last week of his life, and he's giving people now the backstory is he's now giving people prophecies, right? So he's there, he's sitting on the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came to him and said, it says privately, by the way, tell us, when will this happen, right? What's going to happen? Not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. The temple is going to be destroyed. Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name claiming I am the Messiah. The Christian Bible tells us that there were a lot of people claiming to be the Messiah. How do we know that? Because Jesus just said it. Jesus wouldn't have said it if, number one, it wasn't already happening, or again, if he doesn't say it's going to happen. They will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumor of wars. But see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise up against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are beginning of birth pains. And again, this is the Messianic era, which he's talking about, right? Yes. Okay, but Jesus is saying it. But I'm just telling you, take the words as they are. Take the words as gospel. This is the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And look at what it says. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, folks, he just said it. He just said it. So when I tell you that there is no Christianity without the book of Daniel, understand that Jesus said that. I didn't say it. Jesus said it. And he said that when the book of Daniel is talking about the object of desolation, he's not talking about the Maccabean one. He's talking about the one the Romans just put in the temple. He midrashed it. He did a thing that the rabbis did all the time, which is look at this. It's playing out again. But it already played out. The book of Daniel had already played out. It had played out 200 years before, literally almost 200 years before. But Christians read it that it was happening now. And he said it. Let the reader understand that those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. He's talking about that. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of those elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So he tells people, you're going to be deceived by other people who are going to say, I'm the Messiah, that these are the days that they're happening. What again, and to John's point, there is a huge difference between then what happens, which is that Jesus is that guy and he doesn't come yet. He's coming back. And that's where, again, you have to have this book, which was written later, which is not the book of Revelations, but Revelation. And this is the book that is the book that, to some extent, is the book that will give us a whole lot of it will give us a whole lot of the prophecies, and it has this line right here. This vision, which it comes directly from the book of Daniel. Now, we don't have time. Yeah. Now, we don't have time to go through all the parallels between the book of Revelation, which, again, goes on for, you can see, through all these chapters. It's almost over. Chapter. Let's see, right there. That's it. Chapter 22. This is a continuance of what we have in the book of Daniel, which is visions of what's going to play out during the time immediately after Jesus. Some of it did play out, but the big thing didn't happen, which is that Messiah didn't come, which is why we have the understanding that it just hasn't finally played out. And so people still look for the stuff that is being foretold in the book of Revelation to still come forward, which is that it'll happen during our time. So throughout history, whether it was during the time of the Mongol invasion, which became a time when people thought this was the end of the world, or whether it was the communist, whether it was Stalin and the World War III that was supposed to happen in the 1980s, that, was the confrontation between the North, the enemy from the North, which would have been Russia, or again, people who say that it's coming out of the East, out of the Muslim lands. People who've looked for the book of Revelation to talk about when that happens, it all comes out of Daniel. It all comes out of this intention of trying to say that we live during times that there's going to be a great upheaval, and it's going to be very bad, but it will be followed by the right time, the good time. So what do? People were always looking to try to say that it might get worse, but once it gets worse, it'll get better. And people have always been looking for that. Again, the importance is that Daniel is that link between the Bible and what we have when we talk about that kind of speculation, when we get to these apocalyptic visions. Now, we're off for the next few weeks. We're going to come back in August, and the rest of the Tanakh, which we're very close to the end of the Tanakh right now. We're almost to the end of Tuesday's Tanakh reading, which is also interesting because we have Wednesdays, as I mentioned, is becoming a breadth of Jewish encyclopedic stuff. And actually, Judith saw some of the work I was doing this weekend on it. It's very exciting. Tuesdays will also be changing too in the coming days, but we're not quite there yet. A lot of it depends on what happens with Wednesdays, but I already know what's happening with Wednesdays to a large extent. But you can see that Tuesday we have now that we finished Daniel, and we can again say Tam v'nei shalem tehillah le'el borei olam. We give thanks and praise to God, the Creator of everything. We have Ezra, Nehemiah, and the books of Chronicles. So we're gonna see what happens a little bit on what happens with the Wednesday, how that develops. But I will tell you this: when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a bonus, which I was debating whether to do it, and I don't think we've done it, and so we're going to do it. We're going to do it when we come back, which is we're going to read parts of the book of Daniel that we don't normally do. We're going to read Susanna and Bell and the Dragon and some of the other parts of the book of Daniel that didn't quite make it. So even though we're really done with the book of Daniel, done with the book of Daniel as it appears in the Tanakh, but we're not done with the book of Daniel as it appears in the Apocrypha and as it was written by Jews. And there's a very interesting story that we're going to read, the story of Shoshana, of Susanna, who oftentimes is not talked about, but it was definitely written, as you can see, by Jews, right? And so we're going to read about this story right here. The Catholic Church keeps it, the Orthodox churches keep it, and again, Protestants didn't keep it, but they definitely were inspired by it. So I wish everyone good weeks of growth and hopefully a safe travel. And thank you everybody for being here as we read Daniel, and hopefully this is not the end of days, or at least not the end of More tribulation is not in store for us. Let's hope. It's the end of days for Tuesdays for about a month. Take care, everybody. Be well. Bye bye.